It is now my distinct honor and privilege to introduce this next session, The Emergence of Arab Zionism. Our panelists for this session include Noura Al-Hawadi, who you might remember as the girl from that viral photo of the UAE and Israeli flags overlooking the Dubai skyline. Noura is a true peace activist and has been one of the most vocal proponents for peace between Jews and Muslims, Israelis and Arabs, especially since the signing of the Abraham Accords. I highly encourage that you follow her on social media. Joining Noura will be Bassem Eid, a Palestinian peace activist who is a vocal advocate of how the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are violating the human rights of Palestinians, of their own people. As the founder of the Jerusalem-based Palestinian Human Rights Monitoring Group, Bassem has been tachlis about how Palestinian leaders are perpetuating this conflict and ensuring that nothing changes, rather than acknowledging Israel's right to exist and come to the negotiating table. He is a true ally of the Jewish community. Then we have Mohammed Kabia, an Israeli Bedouin who served in the IDF. Mohammed comes from a long line of Bedouins who have been very vocal about their support for Israel. Today, Mohammed continues to display his pride and love for the Jewish state by working as an IDF strategic consultant. He is balanced, objective, and a true activist for Israel, for peace, and for coexistence. Our student leader moderating this panel is John Jaden Ziner Cohen, a Hasbara Fellow at OCAD University in Toronto, who comes from a strong family of Israel advocates. John?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel. So my name is John Jaden Ziner Cohen. I'm a Hasbara Fellow at OCAD University in Toronto, and I'm very proud and excited to moderate this panel, The Emergence of Arab Zionism. So it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce the following speakers. So we have Bassem Eid, who is a Palestinian human rights and peace activist, Mohammed Kabia, who is an Israeli Bedouin, IDF reservist and strategic consultant, and Noura Al-Hawadi, who's a UAE peace activist and advocate. And you may even recognize her as the woman from the photo of the UAE and Israeli flags in Dubai. So let's get into the questions. So for each of you, in your own words, can you each tell us a bit about who you are, your backgrounds, etc., your goals? Yeah. And maybe we'll start with Bassem and then move along if he wants to answer this question.
Yeah, thank you so much, John, and thanks for the Hasbara Fellowship for this invitation. أهلا وسهلا نورا, أهلا وسهلا محمد.
أهلا بك باسم.
Really, I am, as you mentioned, I am Bassem Eid. I am a Palestinian. I spent around, let's say, 30 years of my life defending the Palestinians' human rights. Firstly, I started it under the Israelis, joining an Israeli organization called B'Tselem, used to document the violations of human rights by the Israeli army against the Palestinians. And after the Oslo agreement, I decided to resign from B'Tselem to create a Palestinian organization called the Palestinian Human Rights Monitoring Group to monitor and to document human rights violations committed by the Palestinian Authority against the Palestinian people. As you might know, to create a human rights organization under the Arab regime, it looks like to commit a suicide. 4 months after the foundation of the organization, I was arrested by Yasser Arafat in 1996, but I was so lucky that I kept in jail only for 25 hours. And the one who succeeded to release me in that time was the former US Secretary, Warren Christopher, under the Bill Clinton administration. Since that time, I think that arrest by Yasser Arafat already gave me a huge impunity. Since that time, I never ever heard any kind of threats. I never been in touch with the Palestinian Authority, and even the Palestinian Authority never ever been in touch with me. So since probably 6 years ago, I quit from the human rights work, and I decided to start lecturing about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but from a completely different perspective. And the perspective is that peace used to be between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And the conflict is between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So to come and to blame only Israel about the lack of peace, in my opinion, that's a very big wrong thing. I think that the Palestinians also should have to be blamed on the lack of peace. And I think that the Palestinian Authority has no strategy right now to make any kind of future peace with the Israelis. So that is the message, and it became so widely. And I am traveling, between 5 to 8 times a year to the campuses of the United States and lecturing about what is really going on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I would love to achieve, peace in my life with the Israelis, but unfortunately, it looks like that we are still far away to achieve any kind of future peace between our own people, Israelis and Palestinians.
Thank you for that answer, Bassem.
Thank you.
Moving on, Nora, do you have any words for?
My name is Noura Al-Awadi. I'm from the UAE, based in Dubai. I'm a peace advocate. I'm a peace activist. Being brought up here in the UAE, I've been around over 200 nationalities. In every corner you turn around, you see someone who's different, a person from a different background, different culture, different religion. To me, I want. I don't get into the political conflict. I'd rather have peace between the people. The governments need to deal with themselves. But being on social media and social media having a major impact, and the cyber world having a major impact, and being touched and being used by the future generation. I think what we are trying to do here, or what I'm trying to do here, is to educate people on Israelis and on the Jewish community. To me, I've never had any Jewish friends. I've never had any Israeli friends since growing up. Maybe because they were afraid, and they never said that they were Jewish or they were Israeli, or whatever it was. And post the Abrahamic Accords, things changed. I have this thing in mind. If you're afraid of something, you need to face it. And usually the human nature, like as a human nature, you're always afraid of the unknown. So why am I supposed to be blinded by something that is actually there? And me choosing to be blind and not wanting to see Israelis or to see the Jewish people. I mean, I've been, as I mentioned, I've been brought up with over 200 nationalities here. So why not? The journey has been hard. It's been very difficult, but more and more people from the Arab world and from the Gulf region, especially the Gulf region, have been kind enough to keep an open mind into knowing Israelis and into accepting the Jewish people around the world.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nora. Mohammed, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, first of all, hi to you all. Bassem, nice to meet you again.
Thank you, Muhammad.
In a panel for, to share the truth. Noura, تشرفنا, the girl from the photo of the two women with the Israeli and the Emirati flag is, I think, is a wonderful photo. Okay, my name is Muhammad Kaabia. I'm a Bedouin from Israel, from the north of Israel. I grew up in a Bedouin village, and for a Bedouin tribe that created a blood alliance with the Jewish people before the State of Israel established. Actually, in 1936, when my great-grandfather rescued Alexander Zaid, who was the Shomer movement leader in the Emek Yizra'el Valley, and he protected them and his family. And after that, my family was the first of the people that joined to the IDF, the first of the minorities that joined the IDF until nowadays. And this alliance cost my family 3 of their members that fall in the Israeli battles, and because that is for me is very unique connection to State of Israel and to the Israeli people. And this story and this connection what keep me every day to share the truth about Israel, and to try to bring a peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, because really I lost, and my family sacrificed blood like many other Israelis in this conflict. How I said before, I grew up in my village, but I studied in my high school in Nazareth, in a Christian school. And because the Christian school in Israel, I think also in the West Bank, there are the best education systems in Israel.
You're right.
Yeah, because that my parents prefer to send me to study there.
Yeah.
And but there always I had a conflict between me and between my colleagues to the school, because many of the Arabs in Nazareth, they don't or didn't define themselves as me as Israeli. They define themselves as a Palestinians, and they living under occupation. And this question, in which side I am on, it's always been with me. Like I thought about it all the time, but I've been sure about who I am is in the second Lebanon war, when Hezbollah, this organization, shooted missiles and rockets from Lebanon to Israel. And the Arab civilians that killed in this war, there was more than the Jewish civilians that killed by Hezbollah rockets. And then I understood that the terror cannot separate between who is Muslim, between who is Arab, and between who is Jewish. And in this moment, I decided to be integral part of this conflict, and to try to affect to better situation between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and to integrate Arabs from the Israeli society to the Israeli community. Because that when I had 18 years old, I joined to the IDF. I served in a special unit in the Israeli Air Force. And our job was, the mainly job that we had was to save lives. What's meaning that when we had emergency siren, we, staff of pilots and combats, we departed to anywhere to help people that needed the help. And many times these people was Palestinians inside the West Bank that had emergency situation, and Israeli helicopters landed inside the West Bank and take them to Israeli hospitals to give them a medical aid. And when the civil war in Syria started, we had tens or hundreds of situations that we gave Syrians people help and medical aid, and that injured in the civil war in Syria. And I remember it a few times that we took Palestinian childs from Gaza Strip that the hospitals there couldn't give them a medical aid and we give them in the Israeli hospitals. And in my service in the army, I saw how much Israel want to help the Palestinians, and I watch how much the Palestinians they want to be in peace with Israel, because the Palestinian people, I think they are a people that want to live under peace and in safety. But unfortunately, we have authority or organizations that using their suffering for their agenda, and I'm sure that Bassem will speak about it, and and he know about that better than me. And but I saw it. And after that, after my military service, and after I work in the Ministry of Defense, I began to share my story around the world. And many times, me and Bassem, we been in the States together and spoke about it together and about the conflict. And I think that is the best thing, or the only truth that we can share. Like, if peoples came from the inside the conflict that they talking about, and from the words and from the towns, the Israeli and the Palestinian towns, and we tell the world that we are brothers, we are friends, we are doing everything together. And it's the truth and the reality is so different from that what the media, international media and other organizations trying every day to show you. And I think that is the most effectively thing that we can do. And in last years, I worked as advisor for the former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and the Public Security Minister Amir Ohana, advisor for the Arab world and the Arab security. And my job and my goal was to integrate more and more Arabs in the Israeli community, in the Israeli systems, and to share the truth about Israel and about the Palestinians. Because when the world will know the truth and the facts on the ground, I think that our situation and we will have a better life and a better situation, and we will have a peace, not only with the Emirates and like Abraham Accords, I think that with the all Arab world. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mohammed. So for our next question, have you faced criticism or vilification in regards to your approach and advocacy or advocating for Israel, peace, and mutual recognition? How have your communities reacted? So beginning with this question, could we start with Nora?
Well, yes, I faced a lot of criticism, not from my community, no, but on social media. The internet can be really vicious. But being on social media, you need to understand that anyone is going to see your posts and see your work, and they would do whatever they can to demotivate you. Especially me, being an Arab Muslim girl, people try to tear me down in different ways. But little do they know that I really don't care. I really don't care. It's a goal that I wanted to achieve, and I am achieving every single day of my life. And if people know me just only on Instagram, I think people should switch to Twitter, because I take things in a very, let's say, in a very funny way. So I would spread peace in a funny way. I would shine light on some political issues, but I would laugh about them, and I would try to make things a bit easier to grasp and for people to understand.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Nora.
Yeah.
Moving on, Bassem, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah. I really appreciate Noura's activities here. As a Muslim, as an Arab, I can realize the difficulties and the obstacles that Noura is really passing during her activity, especially that the Israelis just very new to her and to her country. To compare with me, that I am living with the Israelis for 55 years. So I know each Israeli, and I know each Israeli where he is living in Israel. So I really appreciate your activity, Noura, and I can understand the Arab Muslim society, how they are looking to a lady like you, while you are calling for peace and for more understanding with the Jewish people. I want to say not 100% that everybody agreed with me. But in the meantime, I am very well person among the Palestinians, if it is in the Gaza Strip or it is in the West Bank. I should have to tell you that between the years 2000 and 2014, I used to appear on a live program, TV program, weekly on Channel 1, talking about the situation of the Palestinians and the Israelis. So everybody watched me in Gaza, everybody watched me in the West Bank, and I used to be very critical, let's say, to the Palestinian Authority, to the Hamas, and to the Palestinian people on the situation. I am a person who believes in one thing: stop blaming the others and start blaming yourself. After I will solve my problems, then I can switch and start talking about the others' problems. I think that we, the Palestinians, are living in a lot of conflicts. We have a big conflict among ourselves. Look to the divided society, the Palestinians. I think that they became divided more than ever. Look what's going on between Gaza and the West Bank. Look what's going on between the Hamas and the Fatah. That's really something which I don't believe. If the Palestinians will remain separated, I don't believe that they will be able to achieve any kind of peace with the Israelis. On the other side, I used to say that we are the Palestinians. We are a very good destroyers rather than we are a good builders. And here I want to take the Gaza Strip as an example. Since the Israelis withdrawal from Gaza in 2005, what we, the Palestinians, did inside Gaza in terms to improve the daily life of the people over there, we just did zero thing. I used to say that we, the Palestinians, almost destroyed in Gaza what remains from the Israelis. Look how the Hamas is acting these days. Look how the Hamas is using their own people as a human shield. In the last war in 2014, I wrote an article, and one important sentence, which was quoted internationally by all of the world, that I said that Israel is using its rockets to protect its people, while the Hamas is using his people to protect his rockets. That's a huge comparison between the Israelis and the Hamas during the war. I think that when I am standing up in a refugee camp, as an example, in the West Bank, and people start criticizing Israel very toughly, when we start talking and negotiating and trying to understand each other, I think that these people left me with a very, very, very little of criticism, because I am trying to explain to these people where we are the Palestinians right now on the map. If we will look to the Palestinians who are living in the Arab countries, I don't think that we can compare ourselves like them. I think that we are under the Israelis has a much better a level of daily life than any other Palestinian in any other Arab country. Listen, I visited a lot of Arab countries. I was in refugee camps in Lebanon. I was in refugee camps in Syria. I was in refugee camps in Jordan. No one of those camps is similar to any camp in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. I think that the camps of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank much more developed than any other camp in the Arab country. And that's giving a huge impression that Israel never ever imposed any limits on the Palestinians who are living in the camps, while the Arab countries imposes a lot of limits on the Palestinian refugees who are living in the camps. Listen, when you start looking outside, you start realizing the better life that you are living under. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bassem. So now this is for anybody. Whoever wants to answer this question can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. What would you say is something people misunderstand about you?
About us?
About you personally, yeah.
I'm biased to Israel.
Do you want to elaborate on that a bit more, Nora? Or?
Well, because since the Abrahamic Accords were signed in September 2020, I met a lot of Israeli youths, and then I had a friend of mine who was here in Dubai, and we did the famous photo of the Emirati flag and then the Israeli flag across from Burj Khalifa. And post that picture, I've had more and more Israeli friends come on board, and they visited the UAE. I had a friend of mine who visited my house and had lunch with my dad, and we took pictures, and we take videos and all of that. So people think that I am just pro-Israel. They think I am biased to Israel. They think that I don't care about the Palestinian people. They think that I have no empathy toward the Palestinian people. But little do they know that we have over 300,000 Palestinians living in the UAE. So I grew up with Palestinians. I grew up with Palestinians, Indians, Pakistanis, Iranians, but you name it. Whatever you can think of. But I've never met Israelis in my life, not even Jewish people. I've never done that. So when something is new and fresh, you want to show people that it's okay. And then you want to show the new neighbors, you want to show them how things are done here. We coexist. We have a ministry of tolerance. And we coexist with anyone and everyone. And I don't know if you guys have been to Expo 2020 in Dubai. Just visit and see the amount of multicultural people around you. Just come in and see this. So to me, it's something new. It's like having a new car. You want to drive it every day. You want to take pictures of it. You want to, you want to polish it. You want to take it to the cleaners, the car wash. You just want to take care of it. You want to fall in love with the car. So in my mind, Israelis and Jewish people were something new, and not just Israelis who are Jewish. No, I have Christian Israeli friends. I have Arab Israeli friends. I have Muslim Israeli friends. I have Druze Israeli friends and Jewish Israeli friends. Okay, so people think, no, I'm just biased even to the Jewish people. But no, it's not how it's done here in the UAE. It's maybe they scroll through stuff and then they just see the post that has a lot of impressions, and it happens to be only about Israelis and Jewish people. It just happens to be that. And they just have a misconception about me that I'm just pro-Israel and I'm just pro-Jewish people and I don't care about the Arabs, I don't care about the Palestinians, and being an apartheid person.
Yeah, interesting.
Awesome. Do you have an answer for this question, or?
See, yeah, this is one of the major problems here, that when you start talking about Israel, about peace, then people, start looking to you in a different way. As Nora mentioned, that you looks like a pro-Israeli, and in the minds of the people, that pro-Israeli means that you hate the Arabs and you hate the Palestinians, which is not true. I am a pro-Israeli, but I am also pro-Arab, pro-Palestinian. This is, if I want really to start building a bridge for the two sides to approach each other, I should have to be pro for this side and pro for this side. A pro-Israeli doesn't mean that you hate Arabs. A pro-Arabs shouldn't have to be hate the Israelis. This is what the people are trying to mix all the time. And that's one of the major obstacles, in my opinion, towards a future peace between the Arabs and the Israelis. Listen, you are living in a world which is divided to two different parts. Either you have the moderate people or you have the extremist people. And sometimes it's very difficult to bring those two parts together. Very difficult. It's reminding me by the Palestinian Authority as an example in the West Bank and the Hamas in the Gaza Strip. I can consider the Palestinian Authority as a moderate authority, but Hamas is still very extremist organization. And to bring a moderate with an extremist together, that sometimes looks very impossible. And this is the Palestinian case, unfortunately. You know that the Hamas took over the Gaza Strip in 2007. Almost 15 years, the Hamas ruling Gaza, and no one succeed to bring any kind of unity right now between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, or between the Fatah and the Hamas. So I think that sometimes it's very difficult for us to act or to operate. But I think in the meantime, if we have a strong principle about peace between Israelis and Arabs, between Israelis and Palestinians, we should have to cross all of these obstacles and to try to reach the main aim of end goal, which is peace and security beside the state of Israel.
And now I want to take what Nora and Bassem talked about to a more complicated place. I heard many times how you can fight against your Muslim brothers in Gaza Strip or in the West Bank. And how you define yourself as Israeli and not a Palestinian. You are a traitor because you are an Arab Muslim and you should to be a Palestinian. And you're threatening every day your brother, the Palestinian brothers. First of all, yes, the Palestinians, they are my brothers. The Israeli also, they are my brothers. But the terror have no brothers.
Right.
And this is the truth. And I never fought against peoples because I hate who's front me. I fighting because I love who's behind me. And I never wanted to fight against people, but I want to fight against. I want to defend my people and my country and my home. And many times when I defend Israel, I will defend the Palestinian people, because I think that these two organizations, first of all, they're harming the Palestinian people. When we have a corrupt authority and a terror organization that controlling the Palestinian people, millions of people, I think that is the big chaos, and this people suffering first of all by their regimes and their governments, not by the Israelis, because what Israel gave the Palestinians over the years is many times more than that what the Palestinian leadership gave them. And I remember that the times that our unit, my unit, myself helped Palestinians inside the West Bank and inside Gaza Strip is more than what the sons of Mahmoud Abbas and Khalid Mashal and others helped them, because I've been there. But their sons, they are in Europe and in Turkey and in the other countries. They have a grateful life from the donations that they stolen from their peoples. And I think that when people will live when you live with other peoples and you live with them every day, and you doing everything all the day with them, you will feel and you will know who is really your enemy and who is your friend. And I don't mean here that the Palestinians, they are our enemy. I think that the enemy of the Palestinians and the Israelis, there are the terror organizations and the corrupt authorities. And again, we never wanted to fight against people because we hate them, but we want to defend our people that behind us, that we love them, from this terror organizations.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Moving onwards, this question is for Nora. Can you speak more about the role of Israeli-Emirati peace and how this can further benefit the entire region? How do you respond to people who are anti-normalization, anti-mutual recognition, and anti-mutual respect?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer the anti-mutual respect first. The Gulf is known to respect people. It's part of our culture. Bassem can vouch for me. We are very respectful of every person who steps foot on our land, whatever the race, whatever culture, whatever religion. We were taught by the founder of the UAE, our founding father, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. We were taught that the land that we're living on is the land of God. And if there is so-called money, it's God's as well. And everybody is welcome to live here, work here, be a part of our community. Okay, so I don't think being disrespectful to other people just because they're different is okay. Period. I don't accept that. How is the normalization going to reshape the world? I think it's already happening. I think it's happening big time. The UAE started it off. We know that people are going to criticize us, but us as the people of the UAE, we have blind faith in our leaders. The UAE, compared to other countries, is a very small country, is a very young country, very young, 50 years, and we've done so much because our leaders have futuristic visions. So I don't think that our leaders taking that step is going to be the downfall of us and of the Gulf region. No. Because of the normalization, there are some Jewish people visiting Saudi Arabia right now. You've seen the rabbi. He's in Riyadh. Okay. So slowly but surely, people are going to accept it. Here in the UAE, I told you we live with over 200 nationalities, so we accept everyone. It's not a big deal over here. Like it's not new for us as the UAE people to see a new country coming over, or someone who is from a different culture or a different background coming over, visiting and settling here. It's normal to us. I always say the world needs to learn a thing or two from the UAE.
We
Just
have
learn
a lot
thing or two.
a lot of things to learn from you, from the UAE.
Then please, we keep our books open to everyone.
Yeah.
We want people. We're actually really happy when people follow in our footsteps. This is when we know that we didn't fail our neighbors and we didn't fail our people. It's a good indication that within 50 years, mashallah, within 50 years, we've achieved all of this. Within 50 years, what kind of visionaries do we have as leaders? You know, and our leaders know that we trust them and we have faith in them. In other countries, there is this so-called democracy, but rather than democracy, it is more hate than being democratic. You know, we don't hate on our leaders. We don't hate on our laws. We know that everything is put in place for our benefit, to protect us, the people of the UAE nationals, and whoever is visiting. And whoever is deciding to move and to be a resident of the UAE. You go to any person who lives in the UAE, other than Emiratis, other than UAE nationals, you tell them, what does the UAE mean to you? They're immediately going to say, it's home, it's safe. Every single person you would ask, they're going to say it is home and it is safe.
Yeah.
They are not UAE nationals, but they call this place home because our leaders made it home. So imagine you having more of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, more of Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed, more of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, more of Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed. This is why I keep saying I wish people would learn a thing or two from the UAE. We put things very, very firmly for people to follow, or let's say laws and procedures and policies and all of that. It's for the people. It's for the people. We want everybody to be safe. We want everybody to feel like this place is their home. You know, we want to protect our land, our people, the safety, you know, even us as women. I can go out right now. I can go out at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, alone, just walking around. And I'd feel safe. You get me another country where a woman would actually feel safe doing that.
Especially the Arabs.
Especially Arabs. Especially Arabs.
Yeah. Okay, Daniel, I must have to leave you right now. I have a meeting within 20 minutes from now. I want to thank you, Daniel, to thank you, John, to thank Hasbara Fellowship in Canada. I want to thank Noura. I want to thank Muhammad. And I hope to see Muhammad and Noura in person very soon. Thanks to all, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Bassem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe. Be safe.
Thank you.
Okay, so let us begin with Goldie. Do you have a question?
Hi, everyone. My name is Goldie, and I'm a Hasbara Fellow. I'm studying at Western University, which is in London, Ontario. And I have a question for Mohammed.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
As a Bedouin, what was it like serving in the IDF? And did you feel any different given that most of your fellow soldiers were Jewish?
Actually, I was the only Arab soldier between 6,000 soldiers in my base. And I never felt as a different because my commanders and my friends always they worked and activate to feel one from us, and one like they never talked about with me about that I'm different or something like that. And the respect that I got from my commanders was, I think, wonderful. And they always care that was the caring that I will got all my needs. Like in Ramadan, they give me the all needs, like to rest, and I had a time for the lunch of Ramadan and the end of the day. And in my holidays, they gave me 3 days to be with my family. And no, I think that, and I've been a commander after a while in the army, and I was under me tens of soldiers, Jewish soldiers. And because that you will feel that you are part of this army, part of the IDF. And I mentioned before, I think the only army around the world that we have a mix of culture, that mix of peoples, that all of them calling each other my brother, Achi. Achui is I think is a, I can't explain the feels the feels of it, but of this, but is I think that it's amazing. And no, never I felt as a different. And the army gave me the all what I need to serve, and to be a commander and officer, and to success in my military service.
Wow, that really is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elijah. I study at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Very happy to be here. My question is, realistically, how much can Israel do to alleviate tension, particularly among Palestinian youth, if there's still the issue over recognition of Israel? In other words, how much can Israel do that will actually matter in terms of peace?
Okay, I can give you many examples about that. Since 1936, the first partition plan, until nowadays, Israel many times offered to the Palestinians a peace agreement and a peace process, and many times the Israelis gave them more than 99% of the West Bank and half of the Jerusalem, and who's always refused this offers was the Palestinian side. And in Camp David and Oslo, and in the first and the second partition plan, the Israelis gave them the Palestinians. They ask them what you need, what you want, and we'll give you. And Ehud Olmert, I think, Ehud Olmert and Ehud Barak, and especially Ehud Olmert, gave them half of Jerusalem and 99% of the West Bank, and just come and sign with us on a peace agreement. We want peace. But in the Palestinian time, in the last minute, they refused it. And you can check about Sharm el-Sheikh Accords, or Camp David Accords, or Oslo Accords. And you will, if you check what happened there, you will find that Yasser Arafat and Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, they are the people that refused this peace agreement in the last time, in the last minute. First, they said, yes, we want peace, we want to sign, but when in the real time, when they come to sign on this peace agreement, they refused, and they said that we can't to sign.
Perfect. So moving on, can we get a question from Sam?
Hi, everyone. I'm a Hasbara. My name is Sam, and I'm a Hasbara Fellow at Temple University in Philadelphia. My question is for both of you. What's something either of you think that we can do to help improve relationships throughout the region between Arabs and Israelis? Furthermore, how do you think we can unify the fight between Islamophobia and anti-Semitism?
Nora, it's for you.
Okay. How can you make the relationship stronger? Right, Sam. So in my mind, social media is your biggest ally and your biggest enemy right now. Okay. So what you need to do is also keep an open mind as a Jewish person, because the Arab world was blinded for years when it comes to Israelis and to Jewish people. And I don't blame them. Propaganda videos, fake news, all of that has been doing a top-notch job. Okay. I think at first you should show the world, your world, that you have Muslim friends from the Arab region, not in the States, not in Latin America, not in Europe, no, in the Gulf region, right? And I'm your friend. I'm right here. Muhammad, you're taking the spotlight, man. Just hold on for a second. Okay. You can as well show that you do accept Muslims in order to leave the whole tension between Jews and Muslims. You know, like this idea or this ideology only comes from extremists, right? Here in the UAE, we're moderate people. Okay. Again, we don't care. You're a human being. You have a soul. You're kind. You're more than welcome to be with us, right? I think you should. Well, number one, just a little tip: get you an English Quran. So a translated book of the Quran. Okay, get that and read it through, and you'd see that the words of God are all about peace, right? Extremists, be it on both sides, even Christians have extremists. It's not just us, right? Everybody has extremists, everyone. So you need to find a middle ground where you just want to be a human and you want to deal with humans, not with a Muslim, not with a Jewish person, not with a Christian person, right? If you go back to the 1600s, there were wars between Christians. They were Christians, but those were Protestants, those were Catholics. They were still Christians, but there were wars between them, right? So us being the newer generation, we don't want any conflict. You keep your religion to yourself. I keep it to myself. I'm gonna deal with you as a human being, and this is what matters. Humanity. We see a lot of human beings, very little humanity. We need to reverse that. So social media is your biggest ally, Sam. Social media.
Thank you, Nora.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Adalia, and I am a Hasbara Fellow at Ryerson University in Toronto, Ontario. And my question is for both of you, actually. Where do you guys see the Middle East in 5 years from now?
I wish and I hope and I pray every day to see the Middle East without Hezbollah, without the Houthis, without the Iranian regime, and without the terror organizations. And more countries is come and be a part from Abraham Accords. I wish to see these days.
I think within 5 years, a lot of countries are going to make peace with Israel. They're going to join the Abrahamic Accords because, again, it's a risk that the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco and Sudan took about a year and a half ago. It's a risk that they've taken already, and we haven't seen any harm. You know what I mean? So the risk is gone. The harm that people thought we were going to face is gone. So more people would have an open mind. And the best way to have an open mind is to visit the UAE every single time and just see it, right? And me going to the mall, I started hearing a lot of Hebrew, right? So it's so surreal, you know, like we have Jewish people all around, people who can officially say, hey, we're Jewish people living in the UAE, we're Israelis living in the UAE, we're visiting from Israel. It's something really nice, you know? So because the UAE has taken that risk and Israel has taken that risk too with the UAE, right? I feel like, yeah, down the line, 5 years down the line, probably, maybe, fingers crossed, everybody's going to make peace with Israel and would be more open to the Jewish people and to the Jewish community. Again, whatever you fear, you need to face it. This is what I hope to see. If you fear Muslims, sit down with us, talk to us. If you fear Christians, sit down, have a talk with them, right? But I used to not fear, but I was, you know, just ignorant about the Jewish people and about Israelis. I used to think, honestly, here's something my brain thought was actually a fact. I thought Israelis were only Jewish people. And surprise, surprise, no, they're Arabs, they're Christians, Druze, Muslims, you know, so you need to explore the unknown. You know, you have to explore it. I'm a big fan of Disney movies, a big fan of Disney movies. I'm 32 years old. I still watch kids' movies. Okay. The problem is we just watch those movies just because they're movies or just because they're Disney. There's always a hidden message. I don't know if you guys have seen Moana, but her parents wouldn't let her go to the sea because they fear the sea. She wanted to explore. So she had to face that fear and she went into the sea. And she managed to save her village. Okay, this is the exact same thing. Whatever you fear, test it. Take that risk. There's no harm. No one's gonna hurt you. Just test it. And I think the UAE has done that. And now it's just the rest of the Arab world need to follow in our footsteps. I mean, we've paved the way. It's time for them just to walk.